speaker of the evening. Our next speaker is great coach, Dr. James Lee. Most of you know that he coaches Bernard Lagat among many other athletes. Bernard, he has had a long, successive career with him. In 2000, he was a bronze medalist in the 1500. 2001, he was a world champion silver medalist. 2004, he won the silver medal in the 1500. 2007, last year, he won the gold medal in the World Championships in the 1500 and the 5000. This year, 2008, he was a finalist in the 5000 and went on to Europe to win all kinds of races in Europe. James is a great coach, and I look forward to hearing what he has to say.
Mr. Murphy. All right, well, I hope I won't put you guys to sleep. It's about that time. But Rose called me a couple months ago about coming here, just basically give a little report and review of a comparison of Kip's training and those things for the 2007 and 2008. Obviously, 2007 was a tremendously successful year. You know, double world champion and all that stuff. And all of a sudden, things looked so good. Although actually, 2007, especially, I mean, at least for outdoors, he really didn't run any fast times. But then 2008, you know, really by and large is a pretty disappointment, you know, kind of a disappointment for the year, and very, very high hopes going into Olympic Games. Didn't really end up doing anything. I think of all the major international meets he's participated in since year 2000. Beijing was actually the worst one. So I'm going to try to look into a few things here tonight, and well, just to give a few of my thoughts, and then maybe I can answer some questions from you folks. So anyway, well, first of all, Bernard Lagat, I call him Kip, in a way, you know, anyone close to him all calls him Kip. So that's how I'm going to be pretty much referring him, and then don't get confused about anyone possibly out there. I don't think you can see this very well, can you? No. Okay, well, that's too small because I was trying to put them all in one. Basically, this actually, if you really have a chance to sit down and look at this, you know, you probably stare at this for about 10 minutes. You make a lot of sense about a lot of things. And first of all, you know, Kip and his career is really pretty amazing. You know, he's being, well, I've just completed, and this is the 13th year, completed 12 years of coaching him since the time 1996 when I recruited him to Washington State. Well, if you look at the 12 years, you know, he came to Washington State as a really very good runner. Although very good runner in terms of NCAA level, and has improved over the years. In fact, his very first year, he went backwards. He did not run quite as fast as before, but then we get things figured out, and he learned the system. I learned about him. And ever since that, if you know, really get a look at this, it's been pretty amazing. Running a lot of races, running really very high level from 800 meters, 1,000 meters, all the way to at least 5,000 meters. You know, tremendous range and tremendous consistency. And for, you know, for 12 years, you know, well, 9 of the 12 years is being in the top 4 somewhere. I haven't seen this year's rankings yet, at least not the U.S. not tracking through news. But you know, he's been top 4, top 3 in the world for 8 or 9 years. So it's been pretty remarkable if you really look at this. And you know, I'm going to try to maybe make some copies, if we can make some copies, because I do have one on paper.
I can hand them out tomorrow.
Yeah, of this page. If you look at the last column, you know, I'm going to talk about it a little bit. We do race a lot. I do believe racing can help, at least in Kip's case, really helped him. So if you look, he has races as high as 30 plus in a year, or even in the last couple of years has been over 20 or more races. You know, almost all of them are at the about world class level. That's, you know, that's pretty amazing how many races that he runs. Anyway, since you really can't see, well, the basic training, I'd say, you would say principle or concepts that we'll be using. Actually, these are the things I talked about, I don't know where though, about last year, but I think it'll be, if we're going to compare what he did before or what he did last year, I thought it would be good to review this a little bit. I definitely believe in aerobic base, basically long runs, running distance. I think for middle distance runner, if you don't have aerobic base, if you don't run a distance, it will be very, very hard. And that base is, you know, what gives you the runner's strength. So we do a lot of long runs and you know, good quality long runs, which I'll mention next. And then speed, but it is based on running strength. You know, if you really talk about Kip, I know there has been a lot of talk out there, work on speed. Honestly, I really don't know what Kip's absolute speed is, because we've never tried. You know, when he was in college, he did only once he did a 4x4 that he was running on Anchor Lake. You know, we were running against the Huskies, Washington. By the time he got a baton, we were way back, and so he kind of even gave up and didn't even try very hard. But he ran about 49 flat in that lake. But you know, I mean, I think he can run about low 48 or even high 47, but that's probably about what he can do. Never really had a very good 800-meter time. I don't know, you know, again, the slides before. His 800-meter PR is only 146 flat. You know, although if you remember the final of the Athens Games in 2004, that 1,500 meters, the last 700 meters, they did not run a full 800 meter at that pace, but the last 700 meters was probably on pace for about 145 high. You know, so he ran at least that pace at the end of the 1,500 meter race for 700 meters, if that makes any sense. So, I mean, the guy is pretty fast, but, you know, really the speed is based on the strength that we get from the long runs. Basically, whereas, you know, what we try to do is you got to be able to run 50, 51 at the end of the 1,500 meter race. 50, 51, 52 at the end of a 5,000 meter race. It's going to make a huge difference. So anyway, and then the third point about relatively high intensity, and this is one thing I learned about Kip. You know, remember I said the first year he actually went backwards, didn't run quite as fast, and I was learning about him, and he was learning about the American college system and all those things. But one of those things I learned about him is as much as I believe aerobic base, as much as I believe long runs, he cannot handle very high mileage. If he does do the high mileage, he breaks down. You start having legs, hurts and things like that. So, well, this is the total truth. Over the years, up to now, I think he claimed a little bit higher than what I think his real mileage is. He goes around, he said he runs 70, 80 miles, but I think he's more like 60 and 70 miles for about his high. And really for a lot of people, athletes of that level, and they probably have a hard time to believe that, but that's absolutely true. However, the guy runs very, very good quality. He goes out, probably first mile pretty slow, could even run as slow as 7+ minutes. But once he picks up, he's probably never slower than 5:30, 5:40. He'll go out and cranking. We have a place out in Tucson, in the mountains, by the way, pretty big hill. And there's one place the hill is like 2.5, 3 miles long, continuous. And then we'll run the 13-mile loop, and they'll come back in 69, 70, 71 minutes. That's a pretty good haul, and especially at over 3,000 feet altitude, that was pretty good. So good quality, high mileage. And then next point is about competitions, and I said in the last year, I think, or even the last couple of years, at least in my view, I think our collegiate system is going a little bit the other way, that I don't think it's very conducive for producing great runners. Nowadays, colleges, and to be honest, me included, the athletes chase marks, and there's this thing you can train to peak, and some of the athletes, I think I'm saying running 4 or 5 races a whole year, or something like that. For Kip, from the very beginning, and he's been very used to running a lot. I think maybe that was probably from even back in the 80s, and I'm sure Coach Larson could tell at that time, Pac-10, all those schools doing dual meets and all those things week after week. Even at that time at Washington State, the Kenyans, what I've kind of learned about is, those guys don't train very much. They race to shape, So, Kip, even today, again, as I said, he runs 20+ races. This last year in 2008, he ran 22. 2007, he ran 20. And before that, we're all, I think there was 1 year that he was 19. That was the year when his son was born and had a lot of complications, so we had to cancel a few races. But otherwise, I think there's a lot of benefits, a lot of things that's in the head of athletes, I believe that. And, there's a lot of benefits of running races, not necessarily all of them running so fast. Actually, in Kip's case, later on in his latter years, almost all the races are high quality. But of course, when he was in college or just out of college, then he would go for some practice races. For a guy like him who runs 3,000 meters in 8 minutes or 8:02, it was really more like a practice race. But I always say 8:02 is better than he probably would normally do in practice, or anyone. Stuff like that. So I believe in that. And then another thing is about recovery, about rest. And again, might be a little bit controversial, but I said it last year. I think sometimes this thing called training hard get carried away a little bit. I think a lot of our athletes don't rest enough. And they get so worried about it, and they so much get into their head that, if I don't go out and hammer every day, I'm not going to be very good. Well, you know what? Or at least I can tell you this, Kip is not like that. We have, every year, at the end of the year, he takes a long time off. And I'm going to talk about it a little bit. Every year we take a spring break. And he gets a true break in the spring. And every week, there are days that are very, very easy. But the thing is, every time then when he comes back and when he runs, it's very good quality. So anyway, I think that that recovery rest is very, very important. I think last year at this program, and I think the number of people mentioned about that. In fact, I just heard Johnny talking about the time when he was training, and every week, 2 or 3 days, that he would go pretty easy. That I said, oh yeah, right.
I missed that. I was reading something.
No, I said you were saying when you were training every week, you have 2 or 3 pretty easy days.
Oh
and,
yes.
And things like that. And I think it's really, really important.
Another thing, I didn't want to ask you while you were talking, but another thing I was telling my assistant coach is that I had a problem with my half miler. He didn't want to race throughout the year. He wanted to put in 3 races before a big competition. And I like the fact that you said that Kip ran 20 races a year. And that's what I did. I raced a lot. And not always hard, but just consistent. And I like that you said that Kip does the same thing, makes me feel good.
So anyway, I don't know if that's what makes it someone, all over. And then of course another thing is, the last thing is this consistency over a long period of time. I think this is, really pretty impressive and amazing. The guy, to be honest, he's probably worst injury since January of '97 was this year, right before the Olympic Games. That was took him 2 weeks, pretty much 2 weeks out, and which I'm going to talk a lot afterwards. Took 2 weeks out. And before that, for about 12 years, he's not had any significant injury that's taken him out for more than 3 or 4 days at a time. He would have an ache or a pain here and there, and then we would back off a little bit. He's right back into it. It's amazing how long-term consistent he is, and I think the kind of training that we did really helped that, and I really believe for someone who is talented, I always said it's not really so much of our coaching. We've got to be really very careful about what we can do. It's the athletes. They're talented, they're good, and we got to try to help them and to keep them in line. And we probably can do more harm than help. But anyway, I think the kind of training that we did really helped him to be very consistent. And then I believe this long-term thing, not only made him better, but also really practically, he probably made a lot more money that way too. Someone can be really, really good for 1 year, you probably make $1 million. Or even more, but then you're gone. Then I can make, $200,000 or $300,000 for 10 years, and I probably make a lot more than you do. That type of thing. Anyway, the last probably about 4 or 5 years now has always been we go through this kind of 2 peak, but the indoor is a smaller peak. And outdoor is a longer and bigger peak for him. So basically, you have winter preparation, and you run indoor competitions, and then he gets a spring break. And then spring preparation, and then outdoor. And I'm going to go into it a little bit more. Actually, before the winter preparation, first of all, he typically, with the track season, ends in about middle to late September. And then after that, he basically takes the entire month of October off, plus whatever left in September. So we're talking about 5 to 6 weeks that he's not training. And he'll go back and gain about 5-8 pounds and stuff like that. And then again, this is something that's just worked really well for him. I'm not trying to say this is going to be great for everyone. And then in the month of November, that's what we call the fall preconditioning. And he's on his own. I'm busy with my cross country, with all those things. He knows he starts training November 1st. And he runs on his own. Whatever, basically what I just said, excuse my, I probably don't want to say that. But anyway, I just said, by December 1st, you're mine. But before that, whatever you want to do. So those are the things he basically do. He decides what he wants to do. He decides how far he wants to go. I don't even give him workouts, but mostly he just runs relatively slow now. Again, he's slow is not really slow. It's probably still sub 6 minute pace, and then do some strength conditioning, core work, that type of stuff for a month. And then when we get into the real winter preparation, that's typically from December 1st to January 15th, about 6 or 7 weeks. That's what we, do, and then he does a lot of quality long runs. Actually I can just this Sunday that he would go out and, actually we were just in the park because he had to run a little bit late. We run this little bit more than 1K loop. He would just go out and run 330 per K. So whatever that comes out to, I think it's a little bit under 540 pace, for about 10 miles. 16K, 17K, and stuff like that, doing a lot of long runs, and then do tempo runs. These tempo runs are all about 5 or sub 5 minute pace for about anywhere between 4 and 7 miles. All right, and then we do a lot of hill work. Good thing about Tucson, we get a lot of hills. And you run them all on dirt. We don't get on pavement. And again, as I said, Tucson, you get places where you can get a hill as long as 2.5 miles, continuous. Perfect grade, not too steep, that kind of thing. So we do all kinds of hill work, as short as 300 meters, as long as, 1,000 meters. The 2.5 mile ones, you really can't do repeats. But we have done 4 or 5 times 1,000 meters on a hill. And he would charge up the hill really hard, and then I would have a car up there, and then he would jog for about 100 meters, jump in the car, would drive down fast so that he's not going to take in too much time to rest, and then go up again. That type of hill work, very, very hard. He would go, so we do those things, and then we do a lot of off-track intervals. That's another thing, again, I think it works out really well and maybe contributed to helping him stay healthy, is even at this phase, not mentioning the fall, he never gets on the track. He typically puts on his spikes for the first time the week before his first indoor race. The week before. So, all the time before that, when we do intervals, we're in a golf course, we're in a baseball park, we do those things using flats. But again, doing some good quality work. And then obviously, there's still always try to be consistent with some core work and light strength work. I think, again, there's probably great athletes all about the same. He doesn't really lift weights. I think there was a couple of years in the middle we tried to do that, and he actually felt kind of pretty weird and didn't feel good about it. And then we said, okay, well, let's call it off. So, anyways, but he did do, he does do a lot of core work type of things to help. Yeah, I don't know if you want to see all these examples. I got to move this really quicker. And then once we get to the indoor competition phase, he typically runs 4 or 5 indoor races. And this last couple of years, which you show has been just about 4. And then beginning about late January to about February 20th. And then, but still, even during this time, he got some very good quality 10, 12 milers in. Almost once a week. We're not going to get away from that. Tempo runs, again, great quality. And then that's when he starts doing some indoor intervals. Not too much indoor intervals. Actually, you probably I'm going to go back and see this. If you see that one interval, no, the next one. If you see that indoor workout on the indoor track, the 200 meters to a 29, that's just a warm-up run. And then 600 meters, 128, 124, and 121 with 2 minutes rest. And then after 2 minutes, do